Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Deck Building Tips. So today we're gonna be looking at Zeus. So let's make a new deck with Zeus. And with Zeus you also have, just like how Ra before has two type of deck. You can have the control type of deck, or you can have the mid-range type of deck, right? And obviously, it's easier to replace card in the mid-range if you don't have all the cards, while in control, the list is much more tighter. Now, let's start, let's just name it YouTube. YouTube. And let's start with a mid-range list. That's what most people, I think, are playing before this patch, but with when they release Nemesis, the control really kicked in, right? So with Zeus, if you're going mid-range, then you want to curve just like Ra, and you want to put threats after threats to beat your opponent. So you definitely want, the best play you can have is a marksman on the first turn, since you're not going to be able to play anything else. You want Judgment, since it's one of the only removal for Zeus, and we're going to be playing a lot of gods, so it's going to be really good later in the game to deal 4 damage. Now, what is the core of the mid-range, right? The core of the mid-range, it's going to be then you want your marksman into either a Brute or Brontus. It really depends. Some people don't like the Brontus because it's really defensive play. You can even go with Doom Speaker because they're probably one of the best 3-drops now. It's 3-4 is such a good stat. Some people prefer Stirropes over the Brute. But because it's for me, I really like being able to play a marksman and play a Brontus, and then when I need when I play something on the 4-drop like Aphrodite, it's gonna boost both these guys. So now for continuing the mid-range, we're gonna go with Aphrodite. Even Spartan is pretty good because you're gonna be able to protect all of these guys. And oh yes, I forgot, like I said, Stirropes, but you want at least 6 3-drops. Why? Because you need to play the 6-drops in order to play Aphrodite or Spartan after, because these ones are really good to protect the other little ones. Basically, you can even go with some Sign of Doom in the mid-range, because that's gonna give you some removal, because you're gonna have minions that stick on board. Basically, so see, we're getting through the early game with half of our cards. Now we're gonna curve out with Hades, who is pretty good 5 mana. If you have Annual Medusa, go and add them to your holy shit. Add them to your curve. If not, you can just go with the Arachnes. They're also pretty good and pretty cheap to craft since it's a rare. You want to definitely curve with Nike Ares. You want to be careful to not have too much of a high curve, because you're not gonna be able to play if you have too much high cost cards. I really like Fire Giant and at least Blade Master, because if you don't want to play against even Minion Recruiter, you have so much minions that there's not a lot of chance that they get your Blade Master and your Fire Giant. And depending on the situation, maybe you want to stun something and attack it with the rest of the board, or maybe you want to just gain health, which is Blade Master, or maybe you want to push for damage with Fire Giant. It's gonna boost the whole the rest of your army. The last card is up to you guys. Honestly, if I look at the deck right now, we don't have another strong 6-drop, so you could go and put an Athena there if you want. It's defensive, but it really helps you out when you need to protect your leader or to protect your archers. Your Aphrodite, your Spartan. That's gonna also Athena's gonna protect the Spartan, the Spartan's gonna protect Athena, so they're all working together, right? So this here will be really one of the really strong mid-range deck lists. There's really depend on what you have or what you don't have. You can always change some of these cards. If I look at the rarity, the Annual Medusa are 2 legendaries. Like I said, you can replace them with Arachne if you don't have them. And yeah, just go with that strong 3 drops. On turn 9, you can play 2 3 drops, and you can draw a card with your Zeus. And that's the thing. You don't want too much things that cost more than 7, because at 10th mana, you can draw a card and play something here, right? So the difference late game between 6 mana and 7 mana, there's like none, because drawing a card and playing a 6 mana or 7 mana, you will not be able to squeeze anything because the minus that cost is 2, right? But the difference between 5 mana and 6 mana is huge, because you can draw a card, play a 5 mana, and play a 2 mana like Scion of Doom to boost something, or Marksman, or the Judgment, because you're going to be playing the gods that cost 5 mana, basically. So look at that throughout the late game, and trying to get the pressure on the board with all these early powerful drops, with like Brontes, Doomspeaker, Steropes. You know, they all have high health. Not the Brontes, but he can gain health while you play the Afro and kiss him, or you play the Spartan to protect him, right? The only weakness of this deck is probably the range aspect, because you don't have a lot of range. Except Zeus, you have Marksman, and if you don't have him early game, you have Sign of Doom, but you don't want to play on your first turn because it can't target your leader anymore. And you have Aphrodite, which, you know, these are all guys with 1 attack, and then you have Hades with 2 attack. If you have the Medusa, it's a good range minion, but if you don't have it, then like that's all you got in terms of range, right? So maybe some of you will prefer, instead of, you know, the double Hades, to go with maybe a Fang Wei. But Hades is so good to break the enemy formation for Roman. He's so good to fear away the Chao Fangs that are really hard to deal sometimes with, because you don't have high health attack. He's good to finger away like the Bullymon Kings, the Playmaster, you know, every big melee guy. Hades really brings you that extra turn to be able to deal with them. So I strongly suggest to have 2 Hades in the deck. Maybe you can try 1 Hades, 1 Arachne if you want, but you know, Arachne being melee, she just died to range. Hades being range and a lot of health is hard to deal with. So yeah, you know, like I said, it really consistent, and you really want to curve out with this deck. Now let's change that deck and let's go with the control variant of the Zeus. Now with this, the deck is much more tighter, right? On the first turn, it's important to do something, because you don't want to already be behind on board, because you don't have anything to play in the first turn. You know, the Zeus ability now costs 3 mana, so you cannot play it on the first turn. So now, Divine Intervention is really good, so you're going to draw 2 random gods, but like, there's going to be so much gods in your deck that you're going to draw the gods, and you're going to draw the removal at the same time, because the gods will be your removal. You're going to have the double Nemesis, you're going to have the double Scylla, and the double Thanatos. So that's your turn for control. I obviously never gonna play the Nemesis on the first turn, unless there's some really big reason you want to do that. But you know, also for the first turn, we're gonna give you Sentry Ward, which is gonna be able to remove a threat from their deck and give you one of their threat. So if you steal the Anubis, or if you steal the Annihilation, or the Phantom Blast, or the Book of the Dead, that's 4 really good cards to steal from Egyptians, and then you can use them against them. That's really powerful. We're gonna want, you know, as 3 drops goes, you have 2 choices here. You can either play this deck without minions to be really strong against other control who runs minion recruiter, because they're not gonna be able to play it, or you can run the variant with minions and a finisher Deadbringer. I'm gonna show you both, right? So first, let's go with no minion. If you go with no minion, Scylla is going to be your only drop, unless you don't have all the legendaries. If you don't have Medusa and Annual, you can tech in 2 Touch of Midas, okay, to replace that. Aphrodite is going to be your heal, your sustain, which is going to be important, because it's one of the only one you have in the deck to be able to not die by basic attack with your leader. Aphrodite is going to be careful when you play her. I mean, you want her to not die when she's played. Anyo, double Hades, brings you a lot of control. Medusa, and then you have the double Nike, double Harry's, right? And then, like, playing Nike on Nike is so powerful, especially against control. You you know, and like I said, all these minions, you don't want them. So, what am I missing? I am missing some cards here. Oh, an Arachne. Yeah, Arachne is going to be good to curve into your 5 mana drops because you really want... You know, 5 mana is really a good mana cost because on turn 10, you can play 2 5 mana cards. Like, you can play Hades and Arachne if you have them. I like to have an Athena because it really brings defensive when you really need it. Because your only defenses are Hades, Athena, and Aphrodite. And, oh, there's what I'm missing. Double Judgment. Your removal, basically. Your removal. And, yes, and at this point, I like to have a teleport. Just because when the aggro corner you in a thing, you can teleport to the other way. And then you can put your range units like Medusa, the Hades, the Aphrodite to start healing. You can even develop an Arachne there, or you know, a Nike, so when they come to you, you're ready to be with them. I really like teleporting here. Some people instead of teleport prefer Heavenly Agility because you can move a little bit better, but teleport, I don't know, it's really useful. Okay, so that's the list. You know, that's the list with no minions, right? But what if you're like, because the weakness of this control deck is the turn 3. The only thing you can play on turn 3 is Scylla, or a Sentry Ward, or Divine Intervention if you didn't play it on the first turn, or if you had 2 in hand, or you just stop deck it, right? So how, like, you know, Adonis tweaked a little bit that deck, and he changed some things to, you know, to better fit his playstyle. And I'm giving you, you know, this deck is going to be a little bit based on Adonis, what he did, but you're going to get the idea real fast. So he's removing the teleport, he's removing the Arachne, he's removing an 80s, right? So, and he also removed an Ares. So what does he add to his deck? He add double Argus to have something to play on turn 3 if you don't want to play your Scylla because she's going to be useless. So now you have the double Argus, and he add double Deadbringer also to combo with the Nike. So you have like an 18-5 Nike or a 12-5 Nike and finish the game, right? You can even go further away, guys, and remove the Athena if you want to really, you know, doesn't matter to have the Argus. But if you don't mind playing against Minion Recruiter, you can remove the Athena, and you could even remove... Sorry, you can even remove, wait a second. I mean, you can remove an Athena if you want, and you could replace it for Blade Master, because Blade Master is going to give you health, and it may win you the game because it's going to be Aphrodite and Blade Master are going to be your healing tools, and it's really good, you know, being charged can remove something when he's being played. So yeah, you see how you can play with the big drops at the end here. Depending on what you have, right? You want to try to change a 5-drop for a 5-drop if you can't, and a 7-drop for 7 drops if you can, because, you know, like I said, the 5-drops you want a lot of them because you can play 2 of them at the 10th mana turn when you're there, and you have a lot of extra cards in your hand. So yeah, Divine Interventions, like I said, is really good late game also to refill your whole hand if you have that with gods. This plays a little bit less gods, so I mean, maybe you need to keep track of the Divine Interventions if you go really late in the game. While my other my list with no minions is you have much more gods. So I hope that, you know, these 2 type of decks and with 4 lists for Greek really helped you out to understand more how you can play mid-range Greek and or the control side of Greek right now. And yeah, keep in mind, I know I didn't use the brute of the mid-range, but it's because it's really low in attack. And in this meta, you really want to try and remove the stuff that your opponent plays. So instead, right, if you don't want to play you know, if you don't want to play the Doomseekers or the Steropes or the Brontes, you can change 2 of them with Brutes if you want. Right? They're not bad, but you get the point. So I hope that you learned a lot today from this video. Again, I hope that's going to help you. Leave some comments to know how do you feel about this one. Did it help you or did it not? And, you know, I'm going to be trying and moving the series to the next one, who's gonna be Norse, so it's gonna be Odin. We're gonna experiment some of the playstyle with Odin together, and I'll see you soon, guys. So have a nice day.